Hello and welcome to another D&D Stories. I am your host, TheWriter, and this is the show where I sit here and regale you with all the tabletop gaming stories and remember when something cool happened. Now, today's story is a very early one from my D&D DMing career. During the time when I was playing D&D 3.5, 4th edition was way far in the future. My friends and I knew some of the rules, and I tried to handpick some of my quote-unquote smarter friends, because let's face it, you've always got that jackass at the table that wants to give the king a wedgie and kill the princess to see if we're on rails or not when it comes to storyline and things like that, to pick people that would role play and be somewhat smart about it. And I wanted to challenge them with like a brain buster kind of game. And at the time, I had just seen a movie called Hypercube. Now, if you've never heard of the Cube series, it's a trilogy of movies that started in like 1997, and that's really dating me, but it was a sci-fi series about a big death trap called the Cube, where you would be in a cube-shaped room and there would be doors on all the walls, on the ceiling, and on the floor, and whenever you opened a door and went into the next room, it would just be another cube, and you had to navigate your way out because there were, you know, so many hundreds or thousands of identical rooms, some of which had death traps in them and tiny, tiny inscriptions or hints or things to help you navigate your way out. So 9 times out of 10, you would just blunder into a room, the door would shut and lock behind you, and there would be no way out. You would just be liquefied by acid or killed by spinning blades, or it was basically like a rat in a maze movie. And it wasn't that popular. It was a very cheap, you know, the whole movie takes place in one room because all the rooms look the same, kind of just a cheaply made B movie. And then about 5 years later, they came out with a sequel, and they had a pretty good budget, called Hypercube. Now, what is a hypercube? A hypercube is a mathematical, way off above my head concept that it's a fourth dimensional object in a 3-dimensional space. And I can't explain the math to it. You can use Wikipedia and try to read it and understand it for yourself. But for the purposes of this movie, a hypercube was a cube-shaped room with infinite rooms in it. So it was like a mirror or a refraction of itself. But anytime you went out the door, you would go into the exact same room, but maybe time would be faster or slower, or gravity would be sideways, or, you know, all these different other things. And again, they're still full of death traps, but there are infinite rooms now. It's not a finite space like the original cube was. But the problem with a hypercube is that it cannot exist in our reality, in a 3-dimensional space. It is doomed to collapse on itself after X amount of time. So knowing that and saying, wow, that's a great idea for a dungeon, and none of my friends have seen the Hypercube movie, I should rip the hell right off of that movie and put it into a D&D game. And I kind of discreetly asked around, he said, do you have the Sci-Fi channel? And, you know, because it was, again, it was like a straight-to-DVD or a straight-to-TV movie. It's a good movie. You should go see it. You can probably YouTube the preview and watch it, but I kind of, just over a number of weeks, I tried to find out if any of my friends had seen the Sci-Fi channel or knew what a hypercube was in like math class in high school, which is not high school level math. But I found out over time none of them had ever seen or heard of the Cube trilogy. And I think it was like 1997, 2002, and then a prequel came out later called Cube Zero, and that was just the 3 movies. I don't think there are any more. But it was a fascinating rat in a maze trilogy of movies. I highly recommend it, if only for the dungeon ideas. But having just ripped off those movies entirely, I came up with a game and said, okay, we're going to run a one-shot. So I call my buddy Daniel, who is by far the smartest of my friends, and we kind of pick 3 other people to see. You know, I need to build like a smart D&D group that'll like role play and take it serious, and what I've built, what is coming is not going to be fair and merciful. You know, I'll probably pick you off one by one like a horror movie, that kind of thing. And we get this small group together, and we've got like a rogue, a fighter, a wizard, and a ranger, and their levels and stuff doesn't really matter. It's the experience that they went through was the meat and potatoes of the story. So we join our heroes, Daniel and company, same guy that played Lad the investigator. We join Daniel and company going to the Heroes Fair, and it's in this great big flat field of grass, and it's like the E3 or the Dragon Con of the adventuring community. You go there to see the coolest new sword enchantments and the fanciest new dragon armor, and the newfangled spells that'll conjure like a wizard's tower out of the ground for you and your friends to stay in. There's people holding panels and showing off new potion results and things like that, and it's just a whole bunch of people that have to do with the D&D, like adventuring. We stab and grab, or we kick the door and kill stuff, or that kind of thing. A bunch of people that heroes would want to be around because they're inventing all the cool new stuff for them to use. So it's like a heroes convention. And of course, when you have a convention or a fair, you get like swag, there's games to play, throw dice of chance and win a prize, pose with the medieval booth babes and watch this magic paintbrush paint a portrait of the 2 of you together. Here's a chariot that comes with a ballista mounted on it. Isn't that cool? It's X amount of 1,000 gold, and it's fireproof and stuff like that, so take it to your next dragon raid. All this stuff's going on, and Daniel and company are kind of just wading through the crowd. They've got, like, I gave them a sack of like 10,000 gold pieces. I say, buy whatever you want, if you see something cool and you want to get it. So they get like newfangled dry eye potions, so they don't have to sleep. I think Daniel got like an ice dagger. I basically said, here's the magic item compendium. If you see something you want, you can probably get it at the fair, so go for it. And they do some shopping, and they talk to the locals, and they say, oh yeah, this fair's been here for 20 some odd years, and it's a big success every year, and it brings all kinds of money into the village, and it benefits our local sorcerer who built the Hypercube. And they go, the Hypercube, what is that? And he goes, yeah, it's sort of like a fun house for adventurers, or a haunted house rather. You can go in, but you won't come out. And it's like the charge of admission is X amount of gold, and if you think you're man enough, or if you think whatever it happens to be, that you can go into the Hypercube and then come out again, you can win all the money that's ever been given by people that have paid admission. And they go, over 20 years? And they go, yeah, it's 100 gold to go in, and if you come back out again, you get everybody else's 100 gold that's been accumulating over the past 200 years, or over the past 20 years, sorry. And they go, wow. And they look over, and like the pot, is outrageous. It's like over $250,000 gold or something like that. A lot of people have been just antlining into this thing, and nobody has ever come out. This thing chews through people, through egotistical adventurers, wise wizards, sneaky rogues and powerful fighters, and they think, And they go, well, if it's just killing people, if nobody ever comes out, why would they allow people to do that? And they go, well, you sign a waiver, you go in of your own volition, and the reward is, you know, 250,000 gold. So that's sure to tempt a lot of people. And they go, well, what keeps people from just, like, stealing the pot? And they go, it has a gravity spell on it, so unless you can lift about 10 tons, it's not going to go anywhere. And they go, well, what is the money used for anyway? They go, it maintains the town. You know, adventurers are known for having tens of thousands of gold on them, so it's nothing for them to throw 100 gold in. And, you know, 100 gold could pave a road. You know, 100 gold could fix somebody's house. You know, the Hypercube, you know, it chews through a lot of people, but it sure makes our lives easy. Ha ha ha. And that's just kind of the black logic that goes through this, is whenever the Adventurers Fair comes, the Hypercube just eats X number of people every year. Or maybe it wasn't 250,000 gold, because that would have been a lot of people. Maybe it was like 25,000 gold or something like that. But it chewed up a lot of people, and nobody has ever come out. And this immediately gets Daniel's attention, because Daniel is very smart. He's very smart. He's way smarter than me, way smarter than Quentin, you know, way smarter than Ben, and Sally. He's by far the smartest D&D player I've ever played with. And, you know, even Delfnar, whose character was an imbecile, and he came up with these backward-ass Power Ranger plans. Daniel would keep notes. He would extrapolate. He would do math and shit for time and weather and alignment of the stars and things like that. And if he could figure it out, he would break it wide open. And, you know, without being a dick about it. Like, he wouldn't, like, min-max a character to do something. He would do it with his own brain. And he would just play as a smart character. And that was, like, his thing. That's why he was always playing as detectives and rogues and like face characters that would figure things out before anybody else, because he was really freaking smart. And so Daniel, he takes the group with him because he's the face of the party, so he's talking with everybody, and he goes, okay, well, where is the Hypercube? Oh, it's out in that field. You know, it's a big stone structure. It's got, you know, metal studs, and there's only one door on each side to go in, so you can just pick a compass direction and go in however you want. And there's these bars with a wooden door behind them, so, you know, the guy, like, throws the lever, it lifts the bars. You can go in and shut the door behind you, but you're not coming out. And Daniel goes, really, you know, is it not just like a death trap? That's kind of lame. Why would anybody ever go in there? And they go, no, it's like a room escape puzzle. And they go, room escape puzzle? I go, yeah, you know, if you go to like a midway at a fair, you know, you'll find a cart, and it's got like treasure chests and padlocks and combination locks and puzzles that are scratched on the floor. And, you know, they padlock you into the room, and they turn over the hourglass, and you have like an hour to figure out all the puzzles and find the key and undo the padlock. And then if you come out of the room before the hour's over, you get a prize. And they go, oh yeah, I've remembered that, and I've done those several times in real life, and they're always fun. When I was on my honeymoon, we went to like this place that had like 8 or 9 different room escape puzzles, and we did like a Harry Potter themed potions master office and secret room kind of thing, and we had an hour to escape this room, and we managed to do it, and it was a lot of fun. So Daniel goes, okay, so it's like a room escape puzzle, but it kills you. And he goes, yeah, but that's why there's a pot of, you know, tens of thousands of gold. You know, if you be brave of heart to walk into the Hypercube and then somehow work your way back out. And they go, who made this? And he goes, you know, the local sorcerer so-and-so. He's the one that's been pulling money in for 20 years with this silly thing. You know, we know well enough to stay away from it, but, you know, you can go right in if you want. And they approach this thing, and it's fairly innocent looking. It's 25 by 25 by 25 feet. It's got a door on every side of it, and like I said, it's marked with bars, so small children don't go in the dead of winter or whatever and get killed by whatever's inside. And he talks with the sorcerer for a while, and he goes, "Sir, you know, I understand this is how your town makes money, but what does it do? It's not just full of buzzsaws and swinging blades, is it? It's not a death trap." And he goes, "Think of it like a dungeon, sir. There are only so many rooms, and if you puzzle your way out through all the rooms, well, then you reach one of the many exits. There are just as many exits as there are doors," and he gestures to the structure next to them. It's like there's a door on every wall, and there's even a hatch on the ceiling. So, you know, it's a cube. There's 5 ways to get out. I mean, you can't go through the floor, but there's 5 ways to get out. Those are pretty good odds. And Daniel kind of leans with his thumb and forefinger and goes, you know, this is obviously the session, like the game. Like, if we don't go into the Hypercube, the game's just going to be over. But why would we go in there? It'll just kill us. Oh, okay, well, I guess you didn't want to play D&D. See you later. And it gets like that sometimes, you know. After it's chewed up X number of people, 250 adventurers have gone in there and never come out again. No right-minded person would go in, but they are stalwart adventurers, and they don't need no man, and all these different egotistical things that they say to themselves. We will be the ones, after those 250 other losers went in there and died, we will be the ones to solve the Hypercube. And they go, all right. So they Daniel thinks about it for a while and goes, well, is there a time limit? And he goes, nope, it could take days to get out. And he goes, okay, well, we're going to buy food then. So they go and they buy rations. They get extra water. They've got like a bag of holding just to keep like their food and supplies in. They buy candles. They buy bullseye lanterns because there's no windows. And they go, okay, well, we've got all these supplies. We're gonna take the challenge, sir. And it's like, here's 400 gold. And he goes, all right, sirs. Nice knowing you. And he throws the lever, and a few people stop to turn. He goes, oh, those poor bastards. Nobody's ever come out of the Hypercube. Good luck, however much luck may carry you in such a horrible place. And he's like, do you know anything about the Hypercube? No, I've never gone inside. No one ever comes out. Yes, I know that. Thank you. Okay. Daniel's trying to snatch at any information he can get before they go in, but nobody knows because nobody that goes in ever comes out. So, okay. So, Daniel and company file into the room. They open the door after the bars have been lifted away, and after they go in, the guy comes back, he throws the lever back the other day and puts the padlock on it, again, so no small children will wander in here. And the bars come back down a la, a Zelda dungeon or whatever have you. And he goes, all right, as soon as you close that wooden door, the game begins. And if you come back out, you get, the 25,000 and some change gold, but I shan't expect you to. Thanks for your money. Bye. And he watches Daniel close the door, and the adventurer's fare continues without them. And he goes back to his lever, and he counts out their gold pieces. Oh, they shorted me by 3 gold. Damn it. And everybody at the table laughs. It's like, they shorted me by 3 gold, those bastards. And he throws it into the pot. That's, 25,400 gold. He's like, I can use that 400 gold to re-roof the local church, or I can get some really hot bar winches for the local bar. Like, he's already thinking about how to spend their money, because they're not coming out. Nobody's ever come out of the Hypercube. And our heroes, they shut the door, and they immediately stop hearing the adventurer's fare outside. And they go, really, there's no like light under the door? And I go, no. And Daniel goes, I open the door again. I'm going to ask him something. He opens the door, and there's just another room, beyond. A room just like the one they're in now. And he kind of looks around, the exact same set of doors and a hatch on the ceiling. The place is stonework. It's soft stone. There's no hard edges anywhere. It's lit by some bioluminescent crystals in the corner, so they don't have to use their bullseye lanterns if they don't want to. It's well lit. It doesn't smell. There's no moss or anything. It's just like it's geometrically made. So it's very pretty to look at with its soft blues and soft grays and cute little designs around the ceiling, around the floor. It's almost mosaic. It's chaos, but it's pretty chaos, you know? The sort of like geometric beauty you might see in a college professor's like chalkboard, you know? And they look around for a while and they go, well, okay, so we shut the door, we open the door, and there's just another room beyond. And Daniel goes, you know, the guy gave me a paper before we went in, probably just a receipt for our 400 gold. And he turns the paper over and it says, are you primed to escape the Hypercube? I think not. Ha ha. Nice knowing you. And then there's a little smiley face and there's the guy's name. And they go, okay, well, we can go in any direction. Which way do we go? And Daniel pulls out his compass. And it still points north. And they're like, okay, well, let's go. And so they go up to one of the doors and they open the door and they go through. And it's the exact same style of room as before. And it's just as empty. It's just as cube-shaped. It's 25 by 25 by 25. And they're like, well, why don't we just go in a straight line? If these are just going to be copies of the same room, surely we can hit the edge after a while. So they open the door, they go through. 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 And they do this for 15, 20 minutes. It's like there has to be a limit. You know, even if this is a magical room, there has to be a limit to how far in one direction they can go. Like if this is a pocket dimension or whatever you want to call it, it has to have an edge. So there has to be a place where there's not going to be 3 other doors to go through, but they just can't find it. And our party starts to get a little restless. You know, there's nothing to fight in here. There's no tricks or traps that they seem to find. It's just an empty stone room. And they go, well, do we see any inscriptions? Are there any crystals we can pry out and put into other locations? They're very much in the video game mindset for a while. And Daniel flips open the paper again and he goes, are you primed? It's like he saw us go in. And he looks around and he goes, are the doors numbered or anything? And I go, yes, above each door is a 2-digit number. And he goes, what are they? And I name off the numbers. And he takes the literal route and he goes, well, this one is a prime number. And everybody looks at each other and they go, are you primed to escape? And they're like, okay, let's go through that door. And they open that door and they find themselves in a hallway. And they go, yes, that was it. Now we're getting somewhere. And they go down the hallway and there's nothing there except at the far end there's another door that leads to another cube-shaped room. Shit. And they go, okay, we check out the numbers this time. And they go through this several times. Are you primed to escape? They go through 5, 6, 7, 8 prime numbered doors into the 9th, into the 10th, into the 11th. And then after 11 hallways, doing this 11 times, which is also a prime number, they come across another cube-shaped room, and this time they find a hag raven. And they go, a hag raven? And he goes, yes, it's this gnarled, witchly woman who's dressed in rags and is very, like, hunched over and elderly. Her shoes are gone, her hair goes all the way down to her belly button. It looks like she's been here for some time. She's very pale. She's missing most of her teeth. And she sees you guys coming immediately. And she turns to you guys and she goes, Daniel. and she dives at you with her claws outstretched, and they go, "Oh God!" And our ranger goes, "Oh my goodness!" And she shoots the hag raven, and they start into this brief combat, but it's a hag raven. She's not going to hurt them very much, and they cut her down. And right away, when they're examining the body, they notice something unusual. Around the hag raven's waist is a belt, and around this belt are like a bandolier of compasses. Compasses that are exactly like Daniel's. And he holds out his compass and he checks it against her belt, and he goes, "Sure enough, it's the same design." And then Daniel takes, undoes the belt and turns over the first one, and it's got his initials on it, and the same scratch marks, and the same everything else. And everybody goes silent, like, what does this mean? And Daniel kind of leans back and he goes, "This means that she's run into me many times before." And they go, "What does that mean?" It goes, well, think about it. It's a hypercube. Cube-shaped, yes. Hyper, what? Hyper infinite rooms, hyper infinite space, hyper infinite times, hyper infinite dimensions. And they look at each other and they blow the lid right off it just from this one clue. And they go, "There's an infinite number of possibilities in here. So there's an infinite number of Daniels, some of which were killed by this lady." And they go, "Well, who is she? She could be anybody." And they pat her down for anything that might identify this person, but they don't know. And they go, "Gosh, she was really elderly and haggard and pale. How did she survive?" And Daniel kind of looks at the belt of compasses and goes, "I bet she was killing people, taking their stuff, and surviving on that until she runs into the next person, and she would take trophies. So she's probably killed me many times for whatever rations are in my bags or whatever I've got on me she can use as tools." And they go, "Yeah, but this woman is like 80. We thought she was a hag raven. She's just some old woman." And they examine her dagger. They examine everything about this woman. She's been here for a very, very long time. And they go, "It's the Hypercube's only been here for 20 years. And they go, "Well, if there's an infinite number of Daniels running around in here because of the infinite multiverse or whatever the hell this is actually supposed to be, we've bitten off way more than we can chew, because time doesn't mean anything either." And if this was a young woman, a young adventurer who came in here with her party at the most 20 years ago, and she's like 80 now, then 60 years have gone by for her, and an instant for anybody else. And they kind of put their heads in their hands and they go, "Oh God, we have bitten off way more than we can chew." And they go, "Okay, well, we each get a compass, I guess. We can raid her for food and for any supplies she might have. She was clearly a veteran of this place. Is like, we got to stick together, because if this is what happens to people, if there's no end to this place, just like magically speaking, mathematically speaking, maybe hyper means 1,000,000 rooms. Maybe hyper means 10,000 rooms. We don't know. But if people are growing old in here and killing each other for supplies, and there are infinite number of the same person running around, we could run into ourselves. We don't even know." So they go through a number of rooms with tricks and traps, with riddles that would expose open panels for them to get a little more information, or to discover how they were actually supposed to go through this place, because all the rooms are the same. Aside from whatever threat is in them. They're 25 by 25 by 25, and the only thing that you can tell that is different is whatever trap tries to kill you, or whatever person you run into who's been there for 30 years or who's starved to death. They enter one room that's got 4 adventurers in it, much like themselves, but they are ancient and mummified. They've been dead for decades, probably starved to death. And, they raid them. There's no food or water there. They gave up. They may have killed themselves just because there's no end. And they go, how do we do this? How do we get out of here? And, do any of them have journals or any sort of records of how to go through this place? And it's like, the only thing we've had so far is to keep following the prime number doors. And Daniel, of course, in real life is sketching this place himself. He'll draw like a cube and then put the numbers from each door on them, and on a flat surface tried to map a 3D space. He was very smart, again. And after a while, Daniel goes, well, if the hypercube is infinite, it's not a pocket dimension, then it could be its own universe. That's outrageous. No sorcerer is that powerful. There has to be a chink in the armor somewhere. There has to be like a mathematical edge to this. It's like trying to say pi. Pi is a number, but pi goes on forever, so you can't map the whole thing. And he's looking at all these numbers. He's trying to figure it out. And they run into other adventurers, basically like Fury Road, where people just would kill you for your clothes and your glasses, or for that bag of water you've got on your hip, or whatever you got. They look like they just got here. Let's get them. They've probably still got supplies. They fight several adventuring parties that are armed to the teeth, because they've killed other adventuring parties. This place is a maze with no end, full of rats that are eating each other. So, after a while, Daniel especially starts to realize that the rooms don't mean anything, but the rooms can't be infinite, because that would be like starting a wormhole or starting a supernova or a black hole. Nobody wields that kind of power. There has to be either a pattern or an edge to the hypercube so that they can escape without being, there for 50 years. So he maps all the prime numbers. He maps where they found everybody. Daniel's basically heading this adventure while everybody else just kind of kills stuff and is along for the ride. And eventually they come to the edge after 25 prime-numbered rooms, or prime-numbered doors. They reach a room where there is a door to the left and there is a door to the right, but there's no door in the center, and there's no hatch. Or yeah, there is a hatch. They came to the edge at the bottom of the cube, so there would be no hatch because there would be a hatch because there were rooms above it, rooms to the left and rooms to the right, but no rooms straight ahead. And they go, this is different. This is it. If we could somehow get through this wall, we would escape, right? The cube has to have an edge. It can't be infinite. There's no such thing as infinity in a confined space. Even mathematically, that doesn't make sense, which, unbeknownst to them, that's the nature of a hypercube, is that you can write it out in numbers, but you can't make it in a 3D space. And again, I'm butchering that concept. You can look up Wikipedia as far as I'm concerned for that, or watch the movies. And they go, if we can bust through this wall, I bet we can escape. And they go, well, does anybody have a fireball ready? And they go, well, no, that's not going to help us through a stone door. We do have crowbars, though. And they go, okay, well, we've got pythons, we've got crowbars, we've got, all this other stuff. Surely, if we stay here long enough, we can get out through this wall. There we go. And they go, okay, so we're going to take some of those iron pythons and our hammers and our crowbars. We're just going to freaking dig through this wall because, we're not going to blow ourselves up. It's a relatively small room. So they start hammering and hammering away at this wall, just trying to pull even a single brick out from it, or a single piece of the mosaic, to just see what's behind it, If they've reached the edge, this is it. And finally they just chip and they bang away at it, and it's almost like it's echoing through the chamber. And whenever they hit the wall ahead of them, there's some noise behind them. And they look and they bang on the wall ahead of them, and something's banging on the wall behind them. And so they go, okay, well, is that us? Are we banging on both walls? Or is that the nature of this freaking... And their heads start to hurt because they've killed so many people, walked through the same damn room over and over and over again. And those hallways were the only thing that were any different, was transporting them from one cube-shaped room to the next one if they followed all the prime numbers. And, you know, having done enough lock and key puzzles and all these other things, they are ready to just freaking dig their way out like freaking rats. So they finally, after a while, they finally pull a single brick and they look through, and on the other side they can see themselves looking through. And Daniel kind of like waves behind himself, and he sees himself wave behind himself. And he looks back and forth, is like, these rooms, they're all the same, but they're all us. So there are less rooms now, and then they look up because they hear the sound of shifting stone. And they can hear what sounds like thunder rumbling through the foundations of this place. And they go, oh God, we broke it. And they look at Daniel, who is understandably the brains of the operation. They go, Daniel, what happens if you break an infinite space? I don't know. It becomes one dimension less. It collapses on itself. You can't have infinity in a finite space. That's not how physics works. And they go, so if we break it, then it falls apart or it collapses. And they go, yeah. All we have to do is destroy a wall, and then 2 rooms become 1, and then 4 rooms become 2, and then on and on down. It's like reducing a fraction or whatever, and they come through this long line of just grasping at straws. Like if they make 2 rooms into 1, you know, they can't meet themselves, or can they? And it just, they trail off into all these sci-fi theories, but they think if they break one side of the cube, just physically, that they can break out entirely, you know, and why other adventurers didn't try to bore out through the walls, I don't know. But they start breaking this wall down to like go meet themselves, but as soon as they break in enough to run into the next room, you know, they themselves run into the room behind them just as they're leaving the room, so it's like an infinite loop that keeps going, and they go, okay, now let's start opening multiple doors. And they start, you know, busting out the two side doors to make sure that they stay open at all times, so none of them can lead to the hallway that will take them to another room, because they're breaking down all the barriers. And they go, what about the hatch? Let's break the hatch too, and put like pythons and stuff in the floor so that a hatch can't open that way. And they break down all the barriers on all 6 sides of the cube, and it starts to like kind of crinkle in on itself, because they're breaking the experiment. They're breaking the infinity loop, or whatever you want to call it, and they start tearing the place apart with their crowbars and their metal pythons and hammer and chisels. And they go, you know, if the whole room just comes apart, then won't it just collapse? You know, won't it take us with it? You know, no, surely we can survive, you know, rocks fall and everybody dies. You know, we're, you know, 8th level or 9th level or whatever they happen to be. We can't die from rocks fall and everybody dies. Bullshit, they can't. But eventually they've torn open all the doors. They've worked a hole into the next wall. The wall behind them has been worked open by themselves, and then the whole thing just kind of collapses like a tent with them inside. And outside, at the adventurers, you know, the heroes convention or whatever you want to call it, the Hypercube just falls in all directions. The walls crinkle in on themselves. The studs start shooting out. It starts to shudder and rumble. The wooden doors start to collapse on themselves like dying stars, and the metal bars start to curl and whine, and suddenly our four heroes tumble out onto the grass as the whole thing just collapses onto itself, and the sorcerer is just like standing there next to his lever like, holy shit, you broke it. And he looks over at this pile of rubble and stone and metal, and he goes, unbelievable. And everybody stops what they're doing because nobody's ever escaped the Hypercube. And they go, what will we do now? And he goes, you'll freaking pay your own damn bills instead of killing people and sending them into that hellish place. And they pull their swords like they're getting ready to take on the sorcerer. And he goes, and he goes, well, you are the first ones to ever come out. I shan't do you any harm, and I told you that this place would kill you if you went in, and your egos sent you in, so your tenacity has brought you back out. Here, have the pot of 25,400. Well, excuse me, 25,397 gold. Thank you very much. And, the prize is yours. Take it. And he takes the gravity spell off of it so they can scoop it into their bags. And he goes, don't make another Hypercube or we'll come back for you and throw you into it. And he goes, very well. Once my challenge has been defeated, word will spread about how you did it. So there's no point in building a new one. It's good. It won't eat anyone else. And they're not sure how to handle this, because, again, they signed a waiver, they got a receipt, this place will kill you, but if you come out, you get the money. But it was way darker, way meaner. People had gone mad in there, turned into cannibals, turned into Mad Max Fury Road people that would just kill other adventuring parties to take their water and their food, or gave up and died. A lot of dark stuff went on just in this simple little space. And, this math problem gone wrong. Again, I can't really explain what a Hypercube is. It's just a fourth-dimensional space in a three-dimensional space, and eventually it collapses on itself because you can't make a stable one. But it made a good idea for a dungeon, and they wrecked it just on sheer tenacity. And again, I don't know why any other adventurers in 20 years or in 50 years from the inside of the cube, in 50 years, didn't think to just hammer through a wall somewhere. Maybe nobody had the right tools. But our heroes, broke the dungeon wide open and collected their 25,397 gold and went home all the richer. And the Heroes Convention offered them gold and prizes, and you should host a panel. Tell us about how you escaped the Hypercube. He's not going to make another one because you'll just tell us how it's done, and then everybody would win, right? That's not a very good carnival game. This carnival game eats people. They'd freaking die by the handful. You have any idea? Well, you sign a waiver. What is wrong with people around here? And they go, well, Daniel's party members go, well, this was basically their bread and butter. People would hand them 100 gold and then go and die, and they could keep the 100 gold. And, it's almost like a casino. You go in, you play the games, you lose, and you get nothing in return. It's the perfect business. And they go, yeah, but all those people in there that died, or the infinite number of rooms, the infinite number of Daniels in there that got killed by that Hagraven woman. And they go, this was kind of like a high concept, like bullshit dungeon, and players hate like illusionary dungeons. This was worse, because this was like bending reality to make infinite loops and other bullshit, and running into mummified versions of themselves, and the Hagraven who had killed and maybe eaten Daniel X number of times and got the bandolier of compasses around her hip, and just, you know, it's like that. We got to keep an eye on that sorcerer, and you know, nothing ever came after that. That was just a one-shot. But they escaped the Hypercube and became heroes of the Heroes Convention. So that was kind of where that game ended. And yeah, I ripped everything right out of that movie Hypercube. And again, I greatly recommend that you go watch the Cube trilogy. Cube, Hypercube, and then Cube Zero was like a prequel that came out later. But it's a great trio of movies, and it made for a really interesting D&D game. So, you know, I copy and pasted everything out of that movie, but they seem to enjoy it. So, and that's what you're there to do, right? Is have fun, even if you're borrowing from something else. But that was probably the most like stark cut and paste I ever did do, that I just, once I realized that none of them had ever heard of the movie Hypercube, I stole everything out of it. So, I hope you'd enjoyed that story, and I hope you go look for those movies, because, again, they're just like sci-fi B movies with no budget, but they're really interesting, like human condition, kind of psychological horror kind of movies. So, I hope you enjoyed that story, and I will see you guys on the next D&D stories. Keep gaming. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I really love telling D&D stories, and I also really love eating food. So if you'd like to toss a couple of gold pieces into this humble bard's hat, be sure to check out my Patreon. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit the like button as well. And if you'd like access to maps, character art, and channel updates too, check out the D&D Stories Facebook. Keep gaming!